Dit is vir my so lekker om vanoggend met Jason Redding te gesels. Hy's 'n genetikus by SA Studbook en ons vind bietjie meer uit. Hulle sê een geen om alle veeteelers te pyl. Jason, welcome to GROOTplaas.
Hi Mia, thank you for having me this morning.
Tell me just quickly a little bit about your work. What exactly do you do?
Well, I'm a geneticist at SA Studbook. We help breeders with breeding values, measuring their animals, but I'm mainly involved in genomics, which is an all-in-one DNA test that is a relatively new technology in Southern Africa, and we are trying to get our beef, dairy, and small stock breeders to adopt this technology as it is a great tool to move their herd's genetic progress forward at a faster pace.
That sounds really interesting. Let's take a few minutes. What is polledness in cattle, and how big of a situation is it?
Well, to talk about polledness, you need to first think about the average type of cow that you see out there. So you're driving along the road and you see an Junie cow or a herd of Herefords, and most of these animals have horns. So horns is the natural wild variant of the phenotype expression that we see in animals. So most animals have horns. But now and again, an animal doesn't have horns. And so the absence of horns is known as polledness.
All right. What causes polledness in cattle?
Well, polledness is caused by a mutation. So researchers have identified a gene called the polled locus. That is the main region where the genes that cause horns to grow is on the animal's DNA. But these researchers identified that the animals that don't have horns, the ones that are polled, they have a specific mutation that is causing the horn gene to switch off. And because this gene switches off, horns don't grow at all, and the animal appears polled.
How often does this occur, and does this affect the value of cattle in any way?
Well, because it's a mutation, the original occurrence of it was quite rare, especially in your traditional cattle breeds, your Brahman types and your Sangha breeds like the Nguni. But we've observed within some of the taurine breeds like the Hereford and any other composite cross like a Bonsmara or a Beefmaster or a Santa Gertrudis does carry these mutations. And it is favorable to increase the occurrence of these mutations because there is a welfare case regarding polledness. At the moment, it is mandatory to dehorn your animals. And we know that dehorning your animals can be detrimental to your animal's welfare. So if you can breed polled cattle, you cut out the need for dehorning your animals, which is favorable to a consumer as well as to the overall management of cattle on your farm.
Are there different mutations that causes polledness?
Yes, that's a great question, and that's a very big buzzword or buzz theme in the industry at the moment. About 5 or 6 years ago, Dr. Rulene Erasmus at the Agricultural Research Council, her PhD study was verifying the Celtic polled mutation in the Bonsmara and Drakensberger breeds. This is the most common variant, the Celtic variant. But as researchers come out, they've identified that some animals were polled, but they didn't carry the Celtic mutation. They identified 3 other mutations. One is called the Frisian variant, which is derived from the ancestral Frisian population, which the Holstein and the beef shorthorn have come from. And this one is actually present in a lot of the breeds that I've mentioned, composite breed, taurine breeds. And then there are 2 other ones. One is called the Guarani variant, which is in Brahman type breeds. And then we've got the Kazakh variant, which is a very small, rare one, mainly in Mongolian breeds. All 4 of these mutations cause polledness, but their occurrence within breeds is different.
Jason, just hold that thought for me. Ons gaan nou net gou 'n bietjie vinnig inloer by FR+ en met Christof van Niekerk gesels oor beleggings. Ons is nou terug.
FR Plus. Grow and guard your wealth.
Welkom terug by GROOTplaas. Ek is bevoorreg om vanoggend met Christof van Niekerk, beleggingsbestuurder by FR Plus te gesels. En FR Plus is 'n private ekwiteit beleggingsplatform en ook geregistreerde FSP. Christof, goeiemôre en welkom.
Goeie baie dankie.
Dis lekker om met jou te gesels. Christof, vertel my 'n bietjie, wie is FR Plus? Wat is julle doel en verduidelik so 'n bietjie oor julle produkte?
FR Plus is 'n private ekwiteitsbeleggingsplatform wat ook korttermyn en lewensversekering aanbied.
Okay.
Die doel van FR Plus is om 'n go-to vennoot te wees vir individue om hulle finansiële posisie te verbeter en baie belangrik te beskerm.
Okay.
Ons bied twee verskillende beleggings aan, belegging in voorkeuraandele sowel as 'n belegging in skuldbriewe. Die belegging in voorkeuraandele is 'n uitstekende beleggingsgeleentheid om beleggers geleentheid te gee om hoër opbrengskoerse te verdien deur in mega boerderyoperasies te belê, wat dan baie winsgewend kan wees en baie goeie opbrengste kan lewer.
Okay.
'n Goeie voorbeeld is 'n boerdery wat ons onlangs betrokke geraak het waar die boerdery in sakeredding was. Ons het ingetree, die daaglikse bestuur oorgeneem, herstruktureer, finansier deur middel van ons beleggers en die boerdery is tans baie winsgewend en bied 'n baie lekker opbrengs vir ons beleggers.
Okay.
Die skuldbriewe wat uitgereik word is om beleggers 'n blootstelling te gee aan 'n hoër opbrengskoers in die private ekwiteitssektor.
Goed.
Skuldbriewe word uitgereik in terme van 'n prospektus en hulle bied 'n maandelikse rente-uitbetaling aan beleggers.
Fantasties. Ek wil 'n bietjie hoor oor die opbrengste en dan die terme van hierdie twee produkte wat jy nou genoem het.
Die voorkeuraandele bied 'n 12% nabelasting dividend.
Goed.
Die belasting dit is oproepbaar binne 90 dae, 90 dae kennisgewing sonder enige heffings of boetes.
Goed.
En die voorkeuraandele byvoorbeeld as jy R1 miljoen gaan belê, gaan jy R10,000 per maand na belasting verdien.
Goed.
Die skuldbriewe wat uitgereik word bied 1,8% per maand rente-uitbetaling aan beleggers, maar voor belasting.
Goed.
Die skuldbriewe word uitgereik in terme van 'n prospektus. Dit kan opgeroep word met slegs 'n 30 dae kennisgewing sonder enige heffings.
Christof, wat sou jy sê is die verskil tussen die twee beleggingsopsies in eenvoudige terme dat ek ook verstaan?
Die skuldbriewe wat uitgereik word betaal 1,8% per maand rente, maar dit is voor belasting. Dit werk uit op 21,6% per jaar opbrengs wat die belegger verdien. Afhangende van sy belastingskaal, as ons werk met die aanname dat die persoon op die hoogste belastingskaal is en hy betaal 45% belasting, gaan hy 'n nabelasting opbrengskoers verdien van 11,88% per jaar.
Goed.
Wat net so trapsie minder is as die voorkeurdividend.
Yes.
Maar die skuldbriewe bied dan vir 'n belegger 'n baie beter maandelikse kontantvloei voordeel.
Yes, okay, ek verstaan.
Die belegging in voorkeuraandele betaal 12% nabelasting opbrengskoers per jaar. Ongeag.
Okay.
So dit bied vir 'n belegger wat in 'n hoër belastingskaal is, bied dit vir hom in 'n jaar se tyd 'n beter netto opbrengs as die skuldbriewe.
Okay, ek verstaan. Okay. My laaste vraag, Christof, hoe kan kykers met julle in kontak kom om meer uit te vind as ook om dan by FR Plus te belê?
Dis maklik, gaan op die webwerf frplus.co.za. Daar is inligting, daar is fact sheets, eenvoudige one-pagers vir die skuldbriewe en die voorkeuraandele verwys en verduidelik. Daar's 'n kontakvorm wat omtrent 10 sekondes vat om in te vul.
Lekker.
Iemand van ons span sal dan in kontak tree met hulle en dan kan die proses begin.
Fantasties, so maklik soos dit.
Dis
Dankie Christof vir jou tyd, hoor. Ons waardeer dit. En dit is dan FR Plus, besoek hulle webwerf soos hy gesê het frplus.co.za en hulle is dan ook 'n geregistreerde FSP.
FR Plus. Grow and guard your wealth.
Ek gesels verder met Jason Redding. Jason, can an animal carry two different polled mutations at the same time?
Yes. So with the genomic test, we are able to test an animal for both Celtic and Frisian. And what we are starting to see is that some breeds carry both the Celtic and the Frisian variant.
Yeah.
And some animals are homozygote polled, but they carry one copy of each mutation. And this is interesting because one must keep in mind that polledness is dominant over horns. So an animal that is polled can still be a carrier of the horn gene, or it doesn't carry the horn gene and is what I like to call a double polled or a double puna animal.
Yes.
And a double puna animal will always breed polled calves, even if it is mated to horned cows. So I think I have an image where I have an animal that is a carrier of the Celtic and the Frisian variant, And 50% of the time, this animal will pass on the Celtic polled variant, and 50% of the time it will pass on the Frisian polled variant. But it doesn't matter which variant it passes on. If it mates to all horned cows, all those calves will come out polled.
Goodness, that's very interesting. How can South African cattle breeders test the polled genetics of their animals? Is there any way they can get ahead of it?
Yes, there are currently 2 commercially available tests. The one is a standard DNA microsatellite test where you only test for the polled gene, but currently you can only assess the Celtic mutation. But now we are seeing that the Frisian mutation is also present. In order to get both the Celtic and the Frisian polled test done on your animal, you need to do a genomic test. But a genomic test doesn't just give you polledness, it's an all-in-one DNA test. It gives you all the double muscling mutations, the milk mutations, the detrimental mutations, meat quality. But yes, if you want to test for polledness on multiple mutations, you would have to do a genomic test.
Would you say this is something to be worried about if you're a cattle breeder?
Not really. You must remember that majority of the animals that we have are horned, and our breeders have been breeding with horned cattle for generations, for hundreds of years. And this polled mutation is just something novel and exciting and can assist in, if you don't like dehorning, if you want to improve the welfare of your animals, have a look at this polled gene. It can potentially assist in mitigating your management risk, as well as potentially advertising your animals in a different way.
Yeah. Well, that is extremely interesting. Thank you, Jason. I hope you have a great day. Thanks for talking to us.
Thanks for having me on.